For a lot of the top end of the 2024 NHL draft, their hockey seasons have officially started, and for some of them, we've actually gotten a pretty great sample size already. But in the 2024 NHL draft, who are the top prospects? Who could your team end up picking? And who are my top 15 prospects in 2024? Well, make sure you watch till the end for the complete rankings and all of the scouting reports, and hit that subscribe button if you're new for more hockey content just like this, and more prospect content as well as we lead up to the 2024 NHL draft. Now, this 2024 NHL draft is interesting, and before we get into the top 15, it's worth noting, of course, the top 3 is looking stacked. Outside of that, though, this draft is looking pretty great, and underratedly so for defensemen. A lot of different characteristics, a lot of guys that can push play, a lot of guys that can bring that physical traits that you want to see at the NHL level, so the mix there is really appreciated, and I think this draft honestly has a good wealth of overall talents that will proceed throughout the top 15. Now, let's go through and start with the top 15 best prospects in 2024, and starting things out, we're going to go with our Norwegian stud here in Michael Brandsegg-Nygard, who is playing in Sweden right now. And if you want kind of a player comparable, I guess the best at this point is probably a Jonathan Lekkerimäki. With Brandsegg-Nygard, he has a lot of power, a lot of solid skating ability, but that shot is really the biggest highlight. Those offensive skills, though, will be the biggest thing, but the maturity we've seen already at the junior 20 and the Hockeyallsvenskan level has been really appreciated. But the way he's able to work off the faceoff dot, able to power through opponents, able to get his shot off is excellent. And he has a great wrister, he can get it off quick, but the power in his shot is one of the best parts about him. And in a top 15 spot, as maybe a middle six scorer, a power play guy, you could go a lot worse than a Norwegian stud in Brandsegg-Nygard. I will be fascinated to see how the rest of the season turns out for him. Now let's move on to number 14 and the 14th best prospect in 2024. Next up, let's move on to a WHL player who's got off to a solid start here in Ryder Ritchie of the Prince Albert Raiders. Now, he is one of the most young players in the entire draft. With an August 3rd birthday, he won't be turning 18 until after the draft, but you can see at 6 foot 174 pounds, he's gained a couple of inches since last year, which is obviously a great thing to see. But you can see over the past couple of years, the production he's had with Prince Albert, 55 points in 61 games last year, incredible for a rookie WHLer. And then this year, getting off to a solid start too, a point per game with 5 points in 5 games played. Currently leads Prince Albert in scoring. Ryder Ritchie is a really crafted playmaker. I love the way he's able to drive off defenders, able to kind of be sneaky with the puck, kind of deke around, use deception well, especially off the rush. He's a player, though, that can bring some more physical traits to the game once he gets a little bit more mature. I think he's a player, though, that brings some great traits, some great high-end talents, and offensively can be a real make-or-break player on potentially a second line. Next up, let's go on to number 13, and the first defenseman on this list, really the first of many. Let's go on to Adam Jiricek, Czech defenseman, and of course, the brother of David Jiricek. You can see at 17 years old, a little bit of a younger prospect, too, with a June birthday, but 6'2", 176 pounds. To me, the name of the game, especially compared to his brother David, is the skating. The mobility and the fluidity he has on his skates is really great, especially for his size, and I think he uses it in so many good ways, especially getting out of the defensive zone. But you can see in the main Czechia League so far, he had 6 games played with 0 points, -3. He's a little bit raw, I would say, in terms of the defenseman we've seen so far, but he's a player that I think still has good potential, even if I don't think he's as good as his brother. But we'll see. Don't be surprised, though, if he's potentially a player that sneaks into the top 10 later on. Hopefully, we see him get a little bit more accustomed to the main Czechia League, and hopefully in the second half is able to have a much more consistent pedigree. At the same time, though, I can see, especially combined with his brother being David, if maybe the Blue Jackets have a lesser year, maybe they go after him in the 8 to 12 range. Now, we were talking about the skating maybe being an advantage over his brother. I would say the pure intensity and the dog that David has isn't quite seen as much in Adam. He's probably more of a safer defenseman at the next level, but a smooth skating guy who can defend well and might not be the flashy player, but still, I think on a middle pair, could definitely get the job done. Next up, let's go on to another D here and a much different defenseman. At number 12, I have my boy Zayne Parekh, who is coming into the season after making history last year, putting up so many goals, 21 goals in 50 games, 37 points as well, and 9 points in 11 playoff games with 6 goals in those playoff games. So far, the OHL has gone off to a start, and in those 2 games already with Saginaw, he has 2 assists for 2 points. We'll see how he's able to progress throughout this whole season with Saginaw. You can see the creativity. You can see just the amazing IQ he has offensively. This is going to be a guy that can quarterback a power play, and you don't even have to worry about it. He can already be accustomed to the maturity of it and the pace of it, And to me, that's the biggest thing. The pace in his play offensively is brilliant. He can go up the ice, he can join the rush perfectly, and really come in with creativity that you don't expect from defensemen. Though I will say that frame at 6 foot 181 pounds looks pretty decent, but I definitely think using that frame in a better way, applying himself physically, will be one of the biggest challenges. There hasn't been too much improvement in that category, and that's a lot of the reason why he might be outside the top 10 for a lot of people. Now let's go to number 11 and go on to a couple of US NTDP boys. First up, let's go with Christian Humphries here, who is really off to a blistering start with his team this year. Hadn't really got a lot of attention before things, but I think he's going to get a lot more attention now. You can see as a centerman at 5'11", 170 pounds. You can see what he's been able to do the past couple of years, but this year, unbelievable his start with the US U18 team. Got 9 points in 6 games played, and then 6 games in 4 games played. He's played some games here and there with Cole Eiserman, but he's also played games on his own line, centering his own line. And in the last game, he had his own line. He got 3 points, looked fantastic. And to be with Humphries, that individual talent really does shine through. His goal scoring talent and the release that he has is brilliant. And he's a player that I think is going to get a lot more attention, especially how responsible he is centering his own line, how fluid he is on his skates. He's a player that is smart, is in the right situations, always puts himself forward and uses his body well. And I think as a centerman, he transitions it pretty decently, and I think could be a middle six guy in the future. We'll see how much he's able to push above, how long his season will be able to last at this rate, but so far it's looking incredible. Now let's start with the top 10 here and the 10 best prospects in the 2024 draft. Let's go on to Cole Hutson, who continues to make a name for himself, of course, being Lane Hutson's brother, but in a lot of ways, will get drafted higher than Lane, and because of Lane's hype as well, kind of feeding into that, there's less of a chance of people passing up on his brother in the first round. With Cole Hutson, he's interesting because I think there are some things that he does pretty similarly with the power play quarterbacking, the way he's able to pass the puck, read the zone. His vision is off the charts, but I do also feel like he has a little bit of an edge in the physical play, though defensively I still think there's a lot of room to grow. You can see so far the points haven't been fantastic, but he's still playing well with the US NTDP. He's a player that moves that puck incredibly well, and again is consistent at it. You can count on him to make the right play offensively. Even though he is a lot more aggressive, I would say physically and defensively than Lane, I do also think there's still a lot of rawness in his game, and sometimes where he can be a little bit flat-footed that kind of leave you confused. But I think naturally as the season goes on, we'll hopefully see those start to go away, especially since he is a lot younger with a June birthday. And then next year, going to Boston University, just like Lane, playing with players like Cole Eiserman, potentially Macklin Celebrini, it's over. Next up, let's go on to number 9, another US kid here in Trevor Connolly. Now, with Trevor Connolly, it's interesting because he has had a pretty good pedigree already in the USHL. You can see with Tri-City, 47 points, 57 games last year, and over a point per game in the playoffs too. And you can already see with Tri-City, they don't have a lot of help around him, but in 4 games, he has 2 goals, 5 assists for 7 points. And to be with Connolly, he is just pure motor, pure skill, pure speed on the wing. He's a player that could play center, but I think his game lends to the wing pretty well too. He's a player that drives the net though well. Off the rush is such a creative player. Can really put up speed that you just don't expect. It comes out of nowhere, and he's sneaky with it as well. But the creativity he has and the power play ability he has too, the way he's able to read off his teammates, give and go, he is such a solid offensive player, and that's really the name of the game. I don't think you'll see much outside of that, but offensively, he's going to be a guy that could be on a top 6, can be on a power play, and will look pretty great at it too, and comfortable in any situation. Now let's go on to number 8, and a player that's been making waves so far in the KHL this year in Big D, Anton Silayev, coming in at 6'7", 207 pounds, and you can see the start to his KHL campaign. In the first 4 games, had 4 assists for 4 points and was just lighting it up. Now we've seen him kind of regress back down to earth a little bit more. In 14 games, has 1 goal, 5 assists for 6 points. To me with Silayev, though, the big part is that skating, the mobility, and the consistency he has with it will lead to a lot of success, not just obviously right now in the KHL, but in the NHL someday. That is the biggest aspect, especially considering his size and how big he is. The fact that his skating is so good, just like Simashev last year, will be a major asset. But also like Simashev, you know, sometimes there are times where even though he might get a couple of points here and there, I am kind of worried about the offensive creativity. There's a lot of times where he'll just take shots from the point, not really for any big reason, just because he has the confidence to do it, and that can go a long way in the KHL, but we'll see how much that translates to the next level. But I also do think the defensive consistency will be something to work on. He has some good moments, and again, that confidence is always there, but there are times where he can be a little bit overconfident, and I want to see Silayev get a little bit more mature, and hopefully in the second half of the KHL, we see that. I don't really have many doubts about it, but to me, Silayev will be a top 4D, and the skating and size pedigree will probably have him drafted inside the top 5. Next up on to number 7, and the highest finished player in this draft for me in Konsta Helenius, who is in a really fascinating spot, still being a pretty young player. What we saw last year in the Liga was pretty special. 11 points in 33 games, and getting that type of production as a 16-year-old is pretty great to see. Also played great at the U18 World Juniors, and so far this year having a solid start in the Liga. 2 goals for 2 points in 7 games. But to me, with Helenius, even though you have a little bit of a smaller size, and I think kind of getting the muscle onto might be the biggest thing holding him back. Right now, though, the tenacity he has is brilliant. The motor he has is just consistent every single shift, and he's a player that can deke around defenders, has a great passing floor too, and I do like with Helenius just how consistent he is offensively, how he doesn't back down from any fight whatsoever, and considering his size, you know, kind of like a Brendan Gallagher type player, where that motor and that work ethic and that solid skill really provides a great ceiling, even if he is a little bit short. Now let's go on to number 6 here, and a player that in the last rankings I said was the best defenseman in the NHL draft at that time, but from what we've seen so far, I'm dropping him down to number 2, not so much because of what he's done, but because of how other players have played. But still at number 6, Artyom Levshunov is looking fantastic. Yeah, now he is yet to play so far this season because he is starting with Michigan State University in the NCAA, but I have a feeling he's going to have a great season over there at Michigan State. And to me, with Levshunov, it's just so many great qualities. He's a player that has a lot of offensive upside, while defensively plays a smart, considerate game. Doesn't take risks that he doesn't need to, but offensively can join the rush. He's mobile along the line, has fantastic skating edge work, and he's a player that is smart in every single decision he makes. And that maturity, I think, is really the biggest thing that propels him forward. On top of a great skill set and solid skating ability, he's a player that always makes those right decisions that will eat up minutes at the NHL level. And this will be a player, this Belarusian stud Artyom will be a player that eats up minutes in the top 4 role, and I could see him even maybe. And this Belarusian stud Artyom is going to be a great player at the NHL level and a coach's dream. Likely on a top 4, maybe even as a second defenseman at the NHL level, I could see him being that good. Next up though, let's go inside the top 5 and go to my best defensive prospect of the 2024 NHL draft as of right now, and so far I gotta give it to Sam Dickinson. This is a player that I was high on in the last rankings and really have been high on ever since he burst onto the scene with the London Knights, but as of right now, he has been scorching to start off the year. With a June birth date, he has a great frame at 6'3", 194 pounds, and this year so far with London in 3 games has 1 goal, 4 assists for 5 points. Absolutely dominant, and to me with Dickinson, he's really the star of the show right now. With his great poise, physical traits, and great skating floor, he's a player that defensively I love a lot with his stick work and the maturity he has there. He uses his physical game so effectively, and to me, that is the biggest thing. He's kind of like prime Jacob Trouba to me, where you get the best of both worlds. With Dickinson, though, that offensive game was something that I wanted to see a lot more of because I thought there was a lot more potential there, and so far we've seen how it's panned out. Already 5 points in 3 games. Dickinson is a monster, and to me, just like Levshunov, is a guy that can be a top pairing guy, but another guy that has a great physical presence, great size, I think a lot of teams will appreciate, but a lot of little things are amazing with Dickinson that will go unnoticed and go really unrecognized. Next up at number 4 though, let's go on to another guy that has had an exceptional start to the CHL season, and that is Berkly Catton of the Spokane Chiefs. Now, he is an interesting one because I had him a little bit lower in the last rankings, but so far from what I've seen in the WHL, he has been a monster. You can see 55 games in 63 games last year, a great offensive season in his first full WHL season, but this year we are seeing him truly explode. In 3 games, he has 2 goals, 5 assists for 7 points, and to me, the biggest things with Catton are the ways he reads the game, the offensive skills that he has, the way he's able to work off his teammates and give the puck exactly where they need it. He's a player that is such a great visionary. He has that amazing IQ and can set up plays out of nothing, and to me, that's one of the biggest things. That's what I'm looking for in offensive players, especially smaller guys like that. The way they're able to be a step above the competition. Catton's pace and the skill set he has, will allow him to do that and be potentially a first-line player in the future. Now let's go on to number 3, and unfortunately a player that I guess hasn't had the most successful start to this season in Russia, but a player that I still love a ton, and that is Ivan Demidov. Now you can see at 17 years old, 5'11", 168 pounds. So far, he has yet to register a point throughout the KHL, the VHL, or the MHL, which obviously is a little bit disappointing, but I wouldn't be really pushing the alarms yet. To me, with Demidov, he brings a lot of great traits, that game-breaking pace, great skill set offensively with his playmaking. He is so good at slipping away pucks, getting them around opponents, working off defenders, and reading them perfectly. But I do want to see a little bit of an extra gear to his skating, a little bit more of an extra gear in his pace pushing in that way. But the motor, you can't deny what he has there. And even though his start to the season hasn't been truly productive, I think it'll get a lot better, and we'll see Demidov inside the top 5. Now let's go on to number 2, and of course the battle between Macklin Celebrini and Cole Eiserman is going to be one to watch this year. Unfortunately, Macklin Celebrini's season hasn't started with the Boston University club, but we'll see how it progresses throughout the year. One player that has started his season and has gone to an insane start is Cole Eiserman, who at 17 years old is another player that is super young for his birthday, won't be turning 18 until next August, but what he's doing already is sensational. In 10 games, he has 19 goals, which would be a 1.9 goals per game. For instance, Cole Caulfield's legendary draft year season, where he scored the most goals in the US NTDP U18 history, 82 goals in 83 games, was an 0.98 goals per game. He is almost a tick above that right now, and that is just how elite Cole Eiserman has been. It's just unfair. The points he's able to put up in the production and the way he's able to get into those scoring areas, release his shot unbelievably well. Obviously going to be a power play sniper in the future. This is a franchise face that you could get at 2nd overall, and will probably be one of the best 2nd overall picks of all time, right up there with Jack Eichel. But now going on to number 1 and the best prospect in the 2024 NHL draft, let's go on to Macklin Celebrini, who, with Cole Eiserman and some of his faults that he might show, Macklin Celebrini's complete game really shines through. You can see at 17 years old, another player that is pretty young with a June birth date, but the Vancouver product has been brilliant, and in the USHL was dominant last year. 46 goals, 86 points in 50 games, and he's going to be brilliant for Boston University. Already is seemingly working off perfectly with Hutson, and that duo is going to be nuts. You can see great point production in the World Juniors on a really rough U18 Canada team, and with Celebrini, the overall product you have is brilliant. He's not just a scorer and not just an amazing offensive player, but he's a player that I love the drive, and I love the effort in the defensive zone. He's a player that doesn't back down from that and still wants to put in physicality when he can. But to me, with Celebrini, it's the elite playmaking, it's the elite vision, it's the elite creativity with his shot. He's a player that might not have as good of a goal scoring ability as Cole Eiserman, but it's not too far behind. And I think with Celebrini, the offensive tool set he provides, as well as the amazing pace and the amazing transitional abilities, put him number 1 for me. There is no doubt this is going to be a franchise player, and a franchise player for any NHL team that is lucky enough to get it. But that's going to be it for my 2024 NHL draft rankings. I hope you guys did enjoy for the preseason rankings. If you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell if you enjoyed the prospect reports and don't want to miss out on any other ones, because we're going to be releasing them around every month throughout the year leading up to the 2024 draft, so you won't want to miss a thing. Of course, make sure you comment down below. What are your thoughts on my rankings? What do you agree? What do you disagree with? And what will your rankings look like in the preseason for the 2024 NHL draft? Of course, make sure you share the video with all hockey fans you guys know online, for all the fans that will likely be have bad NHL teams next year, because they need to know who they could draft. And make sure you click on this card for my 2024 draft content right in one playlist. My name is Nathan, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day, and goodbye.